Welcome everyone to our Business Leadership Series event brought to you by the USPAACC Chamber of Commerce Education Foundation in partnership with Wells Fargo. My name is Selena Locke, Implementation Leader at Wells Fargo, based out of Seattle, Washington. Finding the right talent continues to be competitive, and companies are seeing a need to explore creative avenues to attract the top candidates. So what can your business do to get ahead? For today's discussion, we have invited an expert in talent acquisition who will guide you in understanding the current challenges and changes we are seeing, as well as provide insights on effective approaches that can be employed. Before we begin the presentation, I also wanted to take a minute to review our disclaimer shown on this slide. It's intended to let you know that the content in our webcast today will provide a high-level overview and practical information about the subject matter that we're covering. It's provided with the understanding that neither I, as a presenter, nor the writers are rendering any legal advice or any other professional services. And please keep in mind that today's discussion is not the final word on any of the topics that I'll be talking about. And for today's discussion, I'd like to introduce our audience to today's moderator and speaker, both coming to you from ADP, a comprehensive global provider of human capital management solutions that has led the way in uniting HR, payroll, talent, time, tax, and benefit services for over 70 years. Please welcome Christina Krasuski, our moderator, who works as a leadership performance consultant at ADP. Her background in HR allows her to effectively educate on everything from soft skills to compliance, and her experience from a talent perspective will help guide the discussion you hear today in a way that's valuable for business owners. And also, please welcome our guest speaker, Karen Contractor, who serves as the Director of Talent Acquisition at ADP, where she leads the ADP HCM Recruitment Solutions Group, with a team of recruiting specialists that are dedicated to attracting talent in a variety of industries. With the goal to always help clients make the best hiring decisions, Karen's team of trusted talent advisors are committed to consulting and guiding clients on industry trends and candidate engagement. So welcome, Christina and Karen. Great to be here with you both today. I will turn the show over to you.
Thanks, Selena. It's great to be here. And I know talent continues to be a challenge topic for many. So definitely looking forward to sharing some insights with you all today.
And thank you for having me as well. I'm excited to be a part of the discussion.
All right, well, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, where we will be focusing in on talent trends and strategies. Now, we all know the talent market continues to be quite the challenge, and organizations are still struggling to not just attract, but retain talent as well. So today we'll be discussing how you as an organization can expand your talent pool and shift your strategy. We'll discuss how organizations are focusing on skills and capabilities, as well as being more flexible during the screening process. But as you are trying to get people in the door, how can you also use pay transparency to enhance your brand while ensuring you are giving attention to the needs of your people and what's important to them? So let's take a look at the current market today. There are still almost 10 million jobs open in the US with almost 6 million unemployed people. And just this year, the unemployment rate hit a low 3.4%, which is the lowest jobless level since May of 1969. And labor participation is still lower than it should be and not the same prior to the pandemic. So data tells us that almost 2 million people are still missing from the workforce. So these are people who are no longer applying to your positions due to other priorities. And I'm sure many of you can relate, but labor participation has taken quite a toll on hiring as a whole because fill rates and application rates continue to be a challenge and are the lowest that they've been in 20 years. So when we think about the current workforce trends and the missing talent, let's talk about where some of these people are. When we take a look at baby boomers specifically, 30 million baby boomers retired in 2020. And I'd like to add that 75 million are expected to retire by 2030. So the generational movement in the workforce is coming at us fast. We also went through something that's called a she-cession, where a large volume of the female population left the workforce. The good news is that participation is improving, but it still hasn't rebounded. And we also know that 27% of women have indicated that there is still a need to be home and care for family members or children, or some have simply shifted their careers to accommodate their priorities. 10 million business applications were filed in the last 2 years. That's 10 million new business owners that are no longer working for organizations in other roles because now they're their own boss. And 20% of Americans changed their careers during the pandemic. We know that 46% of employees are considering a career change based off of a recent Microsoft survey. So people have heavily been analyzing their professional lives and what they want to do next. Also, people are focused on acquiring new skills and education before re-entering the job market. So these are just a few factors to remember as you look at the talent gap in your specific industry. And when we talk about the Great Resignation, people are still quitting every day. 47 million people quit their jobs in 2021. 4 million people quit their jobs every month in 2022. And 61% of US workers are thinking about quitting their job in 2023. And yes, there have been several shifts in the last few months where we have seen many companies go through layoffs, and there is this assumption that it will once again be an employer's market. But the job market is still extremely active. It's still an employee's market, and there are still plenty of options out there. There are options with better pay, better benefits, and better fit. And a large portion of professionals still feel confident about their career prospects because jobs still exist. And I think, the most concerning thing about our market right now is that some industries may never see a change. I don't think the job market has experienced the type of shortage that we're about to see in the next few years. And at some point, certain people in the workforce just may not even exist as an option because of the career shifts that we are seeing. We are also seeing professions we haven't seen before. We have people now that are TikTok and YouTube professionals. And, we talk to companies every day that are doing all the right things, but they still can't lock down the talent, and they're starting to hit a dead end. And then along with those struggles, companies are also voicing recession concerns, and they want to take precautions and be more conservative, but they still need to run their business. So companies are now starting to really evaluate their own talent within. So how can you as an organization really take advantage of the talent that you already have? Well, we have heard of several trends in the last few years, from the Great Resignation to the Great Retention to quiet quitting to quiet firing and the Great Regret. I honestly can't keep up myself, but this new trend, quiet hiring, is starting to become a great solution for several organizations. So what is quiet hiring? Well, quiet hiring occurs when an employee moves into a new role with new responsibilities at their company, either short-term or permanently, basically due to the company's need. And for some time, this is even being described as an opportunity to create a hybrid role. Now, this can be a challenging process to create, but if it's done right, this could result in a successful outcome. And 63% of workers are amenable to the idea of quiet hiring, as it can expand their skill sets, which is what the job market is really looking for. So what we are seeing now is that companies are starting to become more strategic about not adding headcount, and the concept of upskilling or reskilling is become more and more popular. So several companies today are going through current struggles that involve open positions for a long period of time, which unfortunately really is taking away more time and more money, as they aren't maximizing on productivity. And then to top it off, they have recession concerns also, along with their own financial struggles. So quiet hiring can really help promote internal talent mobility and really allow you to upskill and fill the current gap. And at the same time, it could be a great retention strategy for some of your current employees. And one of the most popular desires in the employee market is movement. We see it all the time. People want to see growth and they want to contribute. So why not let them if they have the potential? But I also want to stress that quiet hiring is not necessarily a solution for everyone. Understood, you can't upskill your assistant to be a CFO, and you can't upskill your HR manager to be a mechanical engineer. But this is really for those industries that feel there are transferable skills, or someone has the ability to develop those skills. So what if you do have a warehouse worker who can upskill to become your inventory manager? What about your customer service representative who has the potential to be a sales assistant or a project coordinator? Can your business analyst do quality assurance? So there are lots of possibilities, but these things take time to plan out and they really require true evaluation. So as a company, you should evaluate where and with who this transition should happen. Not every person or department is the best fit. You need to identify the role and make sure it's aligned with the skill sets and capabilities. So the last thing that you want is for your employee to feel like this isn't aligned with what they want to do, and that could easily send them looking for another role. So you have to sacrifice your time and create a plan on training. And we hear it every day, right? We can't hire this person because we don't have enough time to train. But companies don't have a choice right now, and they have to make time as they onboard new hires. So you have to make the time for that training. And the same approach should be taken with the people you are going to shift internally. And your people have to feel like you're setting them up for success. So you want to be able to explain how this is going to impact your business in a positive way, and that this is not a plan out of desperation because no one is there to fill the job. Also, because internal mobility and growth are important for so many, quiet hiring goes beyond defining what it means to your company. It also means defining what it means to your employee. You want to showcase a roadmap for their success. And aside from coming up with a training plan, I think companies should really think about investing in their development, whether it's courses or certifications, and it should be funded by you. If this could potentially turn into a career path conversation, you should be having that conversation. And there are several companies right now that are out there with high potential employees, and they aren't taking the right steps to move them or even promote them. And then last but not least, you want this person to feel like they are gaining something. Yes, development is important and it can be a huge motivator, but as a company, if someone's role is going to expand, or you should really consider how you're going to compensate them for that. It doesn't always mean a large salary bump. And maybe as they grow into the role, there could be a spot bonus or some incentive to make them feel valued as they make that career shift. So again, as I had mentioned before, quiet hiring may not necessarily be for everyone. And the reason for that is because a lot of organizations just don't have the talent. So you can't really do anything with it. They need to hire more people and they have the gap. And 75% of HR professionals believe there is a gap among their applicants. So no matter how much recruitment efforts are taking place, they can't get that perfect candidate in the door. And as a company, we have to ask ourselves, what does that perfect candidate look like? Are we taking the right steps to evaluate and really expand on that talent pool? So we know that people are out there, and yes, they may not be in your industry, but let's not forget millions of people are quitting every day for a new role, a new change, a shift in their career path. How many of you have posted for a role and you're confused that people with no experience are applying? Well, that's normal. 56% of candidates actually report applying for jobs outside their expertise. People want change and they feel they actually have the potential to shift their careers. But if you are struggling to fill your role, could you possibly mold someone into a position because they have the capabilities? Now, 43% of candidates today are self-taught in one or more of their role requirements. And this is where that concept of upskilling or reskilling really comes into play. So, we just talked about a strategy that organizations should be taking as they look to quiet hire. But the same strategy can actually be used in many instances outside your space. You just actually have to be open to the idea and look at skills and capabilities versus experience. You could be missing out on a large piece of the talent pool that is more than capable to do the job.
Karen, thanks for calling out some of the talent trends in today's market. The market is shifting, and it seems like organizations are going to have to make an effort to shift with movement. I love this topic around organizations rethinking their hiring strategy because, like you said, there are still millions of people who are open to working. So, when we see the stats around how many people are shifting their careers and adding to their skill set, what recommendations would you give to companies when it comes to evaluating this type of talent?
Yeah, so thank you, Christina. That's actually a great question. I think it really starts with going beyond checking things off a job description, right? Sometimes you just have to take it back to the basics. And you should be rethinking your job requirements and focus on the results that you'd like to see rather than the type of qualifications that you think could deliver them. You should be asking things like scenario-based interviewing questions to really understand how someone could handle a situation and how they articulate being in that scenario or environment. And companies should also focus on two types of skills, hard skills and soft skills. Now, hard skills are definitely important. They are needed to do the job, but soft skills are habits and traits that shape how you work. And someone's skills that revolve around things like problem solving or willingness to learn and communication, all those soft skills are so crucial because they aren't as easy to teach or develop. So just those small things alone can really help you think differently about a potential candidate and what they can bring to the table.
Excellent. Absolutely some great points here. And it's so true that sometimes we tend to only judge what is on the paper. Companies should really think about how they can find ways to dissect someone's skill set during the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think this question is such a great transition on the topic around challenging really the current process as well. So you have to challenge the traditional way of how you have always done things as a hiring manager and really ask yourself, how am I creating that gap? And, my team of recruiters, we see this on a day-to-day basis where our recruiters are constantly challenging companies to think differently about what they are seeing on paper. And we have seen organizations today that take that same traditional approach when it comes to screening resumes. And they've been doing it for some time now. But I think now that non-traditional approach is what is going to help you expand on the talent pool. So I really encourage you all to think about some of these examples and ask yourself if you are creating a gap in your current process. So, let's talk about some of these things, right? Education. Right now, education rules are shifting. We have several companies that are scratching that 4-year degree requirement, and they're welcoming those who have their associates or went to vocational schools or even obtained just certifications. And if someone doesn't have that knowledge on that technology you use, but they come from the industry, is that really a deal breaker, right? So think about that. Do these candidates have the potential to learn if you provide that training? Experience. Is too much experience a bad thing? Let's not forget there are people out there with lots of experience that are looking for a different environment or different pace, and their experience can really be beneficial. And think about those general roles. Is industry experience really necessary, or would you rather have someone who has the skills to do the job and they can adapt to your industry as you go forward? Also, let's talk about assessments. Have you evaluated your assessment process lately? Assessments are great. It's a great method, but if someone scores low or high, what does that really mean for your organization? Are there opportunities to really evaluate the results differently so people are not getting knocked out before you even meet them? And then last but not least, and I know this is a popular one because I myself as a hiring manager have had to be more open and not reject someone because their experience was too jumpy. So let's not forget, life happens. We went through a pandemic where people were laid off. They had personal issues to tend to. They joined a company and it didn't work out. So if they have the right experience, should we reject someone because they seem too jumpy without really knowing their situation? So again, lots of opportunities to be flexible and just do things differently.
Yes, I agree. Challenging your process is so important. And sometimes organizations are just taking the same route because that's how it's been done for over 20 years. Now, switching up your process and evaluating talent differently can definitely work in your favor. Now, Kieran, you mentioned taking the opportunity to be more flexible. So I want to focus on that topic real quick, since that is also a consistent ask from the candidate market. Are you seeing remote work is still creating a gap for many organizations? I keep hearing that remote work is still on the top of the list for employees, and that alone can be tough when you're trying to attract talent and cannot meet those demands.
Yeah, absolutely. Remote work is still a popular topic. It's not going away. And it's true, not every company can offer this for various reasons, right? But I think flexibility can mean a lot of different things. And that is also where companies have the ability to get creative so they can attract that talent. We have seen most companies take that hybrid approach where they are still allowing employees to balance between office and home. We're also seeing companies that are looking at flex schedules, right? Different kind of work shifts to really accommodate to people's schedules. So the role may not require a 9 to 5 shift, and there is room for flexibility as long as the employee can get the job done. We're also seeing companies change the way that they offer part-time roles versus full-time roles. So some full-time roles right now are hard to fill, and there is this desire for part-time. And again, I want to go back to that topic. Let's not forget that female population who hasn't gone back to the work due to childcare or other reasons, but they want part-time. Or the baby boomer who is close to retirement and they want a part-time role. So how do you attract someone who has that experience you need but can't work full-time? And companies are even creating 2 part-time roles, right? As opposed to maybe 1. So it really allows them to have more than 1 person for the role, offering that flex schedule. And then I'm just going to throw it out there, right? That 4-day work week has also been really popular right now, where companies are even shifting employees to work that 4 days and still making sure that there's coverage to run a 5-day work week.
Yeah, that sounds good. There's definitely a lot of creative options that can appeal to various candidate markets.
Yeah, absolutely. And, these are examples that are just great ways to really re-examine how you can change that traditional way of working, right? Making your company more attractive because of the different forms of flexibility. So, as we think about expanding your talent pool and thinking outside the box, you really have to give yourself options. And so let's not forget that people out there, candidates, also have options. And it's great to be more open. It's great to be creative, but are you taking on the other challenges in the market when it comes to really being that employer of choice and showing what you can offer as an organization? And by offerings, I do mean things like pay and benefits, because they're so important. So I'll talk about pay transparency because it really is a big topic and it's here to stay. Many of you are probably in states right now that require pay transparency on your postings, and more states will be adding that to the list in 2023. But as a company, you should really be embracing the trend and using it to your advantage, because there is a law in your state or not, people just want it, right? They want that pay equity. They want that pay transparency. So 91% of job seekers right now are more inclined to apply for a position if the job posting includes salary. So not only are you attracting more job seekers, but you're making your company more favorable and building trust internally with your current employees. So the more you keep up with these laws, the more you can also be an organization that's promoting that pay equity, right? Fairness is what people want to see. And the challenge that most companies are facing right now is that they actually just aren't prepared to validate why they're paying what they're paying. There's no game plan. More than 50% of organizations right now aren't able to clarify their pay decisions in conversations. So in order to keep up, you have to be ready to do a deep dive on your pay strategy, so you really are prepared in that moment. And a lot of this really starts with data. We speak to companies every day who just don't realize they aren't even in line with the market. They've had their pay structure for years and they bump it up every few years based on what they think someone should get. It really just doesn't work that way anymore. That competition is so tough. You have to have the right tools and really look at your data. Using compensation benchmarking tools can really help you evaluate that, right? Where do you stand against your competition? And it's not only based on industry, but also based on your location. So if you're utilizing these tools, you're prepared, especially when you're extending an offer. And also you can make sure that it's not going to turn into a rejection. And then you also need to be prepared and take it beyond and examine your current workforce along with that. So you can't move forward if you don't have your business in order is the way that we see it, right? You have to use that data to evaluate your existing positions and determine where your current employees stand against the market. And if you're off, you really need to be prepared to make some changes or you'll have a retention problem soon. People in your company see the adjustments that you're making for these new hires. So once you've evaluated your open and existing roles, you need to create a strategy by leveling your roles by department, location, experience. You should be able to explain why 3 people in the same role are getting paid differently. And, it is based on tenure. If it is, then that's where you should have salary structures. And those are important. So people can understand where they fall within certain pockets, but they also have a chance to move up in that structure. And that's important as well. So going through this will really help you determine those gaps. And again, pay equity is a big topic right now. People are getting paid unfairly due to race, gender, location. So you want to be ready to close that gap ahead of time if it exists. So these are just some examples of how you can use pay transparency to your advantage. You're being transparent with your people on why things are done the way that they are and what it means for them. And all your leaders should also be in alignment. So the closer you get to explaining your pay structure, the easier it will be as your company is challenged while you're hiring and retaining that talent. And with all of this, that's why it goes back to that data. That's why being prepared with data is so important, because even if you are in line, some of you may realize it still isn't helping you attract or retain your talent. So again, pay does continue to dominate rejected offers every day. And it's been exhausting for a lot of companies. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate, because many are taking the time to increase wages. And some companies can't increase wages. So we have seen companies that are increasing wages now on an average of 4 to 7%. But then inflation has been an average of 6 to 8% in the last year. So your people aren't feeling it if you're trying to help them increase wages. And not to mention, average wage growth for people switching jobs is 9.5%. And some companies are even going beyond that. And not every company can really keep up with that. So it really is an ongoing gap. So I think companies really have to think about, how are you as an organization really compensating for that gap? So one thing that we know is 80% of employees prefer additional benefits over a pay increase. And that is a very, very important stat. And I know recently, we've heard this phrase, no one wants to work anymore. I'm sure some of you have said it. I've said it when I'm trying to recruit. When people are either quitting or they don't show up for an interview, and it's really frustrating. And I think what it is people want to work. They are joining the workforce every day. We're seeing it. But would they rather work for someone else? And I think that's the question to really ask. And we talked about how companies really need to rethink the way they evaluate a resume. Well, candidates are doing the same when they're looking at your company resume, right? 63% of job seekers name benefits as a key factor in their job search. It's the first thing they want to see. So my question to all of you would be, would your resume make the cut? So as you start to see these rejected offers or people quitting, companies need to ask themselves, is there anything I can do that can really make my organization more appealing? And that question should be, how can I be the employer of choice and compensate beyond pay? How can I provide a rich compensation package? And that means you have to have a solid benefits offering. Now, medical, vision, and dental are the standard benefits that we have always seen companies promote. But companies are also struggling to contribute 100% to these standard benefits. Now, if there were more options, a variety of benefits to really appeal to your candidate base, that can set you apart from your competitors. And in the long run, you are relieving the financial burden in different ways for your people. And we hear it all the time. Candidates have too many demands. We're even offering competitive pay. We gave them a bonus. They still aren't satisfied. It's not really that people have demands. They just have priorities. And that's the best way to see it. Everyone has a different priority in their life right now compared to others. So when you think about how you can offer options to your people, you need to know your audience. What do your people want? The standard one-size-fits-all strategy just is not working for the average talent pool anymore. And companies should be focused on really contributing to their people, their families, and they should have access to really take advantage of benefits that make sense for them in their current situation.
Yeah, Karen, I love this visual. And it really does showcase how much companies are adapting to the needs of their employees. We see it all the time. They are really finding ways to create better connection by offering the things that really matter to the employee population. Now, I know all of these are important, but are there any benefits in particular that you have seen come up more as candidates have been searching for new roles? Some that may stand out more than others?
There are. And, I'll call out a couple. We've definitely seen a consistent trend on retirement savings, right? What's interesting is that retirement saving advertisements increased 75% on job postings in the last year for low to mid-wage positions. So what does that mean? Well, predominantly, companies have always been focused on higher wage roles in the past, but now they're providing things like 401k to all their employees across the board, no matter what that role is. Family care benefits is another one. Companies are offering things like childcare reimbursements, right? Or family planning services, paid parental leave as well. I love calling out pet insurance just because this wasn't as popular a few years ago, but it is so important to people. And over 30% of pet owners have said that having a company that would offer pet insurance would influence them to stay with their employer. It's actually a bigger priority for that Gen Z generation. So again, companies should definitely stay on top of the generational movement because priorities are definitely shifting.
Absolutely. And now I also hear that wellness is a priority for many. Have you seen this come into play now more that we've been through the pandemic together?
Definitely. Wellness has always been important, but the pandemic has affected people in many ways, and not just them, but their families as well, right? And there's a stat, 70% of employees who can take advantage of a wellness program are also more satisfied at work. So why wouldn't you want to work for a company that cares about your wellness? And this can be personal or financial. It really goes back to showing your people that you value them and you're really promoting that work-life integration. So as I come to a close, I am calling out work-life integration because it all comes down to really prioritizing your workforce. And companies really do have this opportunity right now to add that human touch to the employee experience. And that is what keeps people dedicated to their employer. So promoting things like diversity and equity and inclusion and really motivating your people, investing in them, and just being supportive really goes a long way. So just a couple of things that I wanted to call out there, and I'd like to thank everyone for their time. Taking on this challenging market is definitely not easy, but hopefully you all will have an opportunity to take some thoughts back and rethink your own strategies. So Christina, can you share some additional resources we have that could be helpful to today's participants as we close out?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Karen. I'd like to share some additional resources with all of you right now and take a moment to visit ADP's new Pay Transparency Resource Center. This center allows you to get the latest updates on pay transparency laws in your area so that you can be better prepared. I'd like you to scan the QR code on the screen to access the resource site. We also know that keeping up with pay transparency means evaluating your internal strategies. So I'd like to call out the guidebook that you can access. It will assist you on how to respond to questions around pay transparency, as well as ensuring you're staying compliant. Be sure to also check out the pay transparency checklist on key things to focus on as you go through the evaluation process in your organization. Thank you. And Selena, I'll now pass it back to you.
Thank you, Christina and Karen, for the great information shared today and for including some resources our business owners can use right away. We hope you took some helpful tips for navigating today's talent trends. Please check back at USPAACC.com/events for more business leadership series events coming soon. I'd also like to take a minute to invite you to Celebration 2023 Business and Procurement Conference Breakthrough. As USPAACC's annual flagship event, Celebration brings together the best of the best from business, nonprofit, and government sectors all under one roof for an unparalleled 3-day conference and business networking event. Join USPAACC at the conference in Las Vegas on June 6th through the 8th, 2023. And with that, this concludes our series today. Thank you all for joining and have a wonderful